Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And I am Albert Berg.
We're coming to you today with a special review of The Gift.
And also, we're trying out a new video recording setup that's going through Hangouts. I was gonna almost said Hang-Ups. Setup, Hangouts, they're not the same thing.
It's a good thing it doesn't have voice commands. Just hang up the call right there.
But we're trying this out. It auto switches between us. I tested this out yesterday. Me and John Jones recorded a Peanuts episode, and the switching worked pretty well. So we are hoping that that'll work well for us. It'll save us a ton of time, but give us your feedback if the quality of the video is not what you expect, or if it's there's some kind of problem for you. We'll still be editing, at least for now, but we're going forward with a little bit of a different recording method. For audio listeners, nothing should really change. We're still recording the same audio the same way, because audio is easy and video's freaking hard.
Yeah. And this is just to save Al like 4 hours a week of like, all right, who's talking? Click. Just back and forth, back and forth. You can actually focus on content instead of like who's on screen.
That is a ridiculous amount of my Wednesday morning. Yes, of just like Albert's talking, Tony's talking, Albert's talking, Albert's still talking, Albert's still talking. Now Tony's talking. Oh no, he just laughed. Okay, hold on. So avoiding that headache would be wonderful for me. And we're trying this out. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the old way, because no matter what it takes, we're trying to bring you the best quality product. We're just trying to do it in the most efficient way possible. And that has nothing to do with the movie we're talking about today.
This is another Blumhouse movie. We've been talking about them a lot in the past couple months just because they've been doing some kind of interesting things. They've had a few flops. They've had a few major successes.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. This is a company we talked about kind of paralleling the Asylum in their approach to things, in that not quite the same, very small investments. You got $1 to $2 million investments in these horror movies. Some of them are kind of shoddy in quality, but overall the decisions that they're making are really interesting. We had what was that home invasion one with the girl and all the weird traps?
You're Next,
which I didn't love. I didn't think that movie was amazing, but I thought it was solid. I mean, as far as like just an entry into the home invasion genre, just done really, really well. The M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Visit, came out earlier this year. I want to say they were responsible for The Conjuring, and I know they did like Sinister and Insidious and a lot of these other sort of one-word horror movies that we've been seeing around.
They also did Unfriended, which, from what I've heard, is a terrible movie, but it cost them $1 million and made $67 million, so they're putting a sequel out.
Unfriended was actually surprisingly good.
I've heard very mixed things. The reviewer I trust most on these sorts of movies, he had a lot of negative things to say about it, but I just need to watch it.
It seems like a gimmick that could be very, very awful.
Yeah.
And if they even got it like a little bit good, I could see people like, oh, it didn't suck completely? How in the world did you pull that off?
I think that this guy was just a little bit fatigued on the whole, like, everybody's a jerk and there's no redeemable characters.
Oh, yeah, I get fatigued with that too.
Which there's a little bit of that in this. Like, the main characters are definitely not good people, although the wife definitely is fine, but the two main guys are definitely not good men.
Right, and so to get into the movie that we're actually talking about, The Gift is a movie about a guy. It starts out, he meets an old friend of his, like from way back when they were in school. And the old friend just comes up and says, "Hi, man, I haven't thought about you in years. You know, what's going on?" Like, they just have a chance encounter. And he says, "Oh, yeah, I'm moving in. You know, it's cool." I forget, does he give him his card?
Or he gives him his phone number.
Okay. Anyway, the guy starts popping up, like, in their lives, like, starts showing up. And at first, it's like, oh, hey, this is sort of, old friend from high school, and his wife didn't know him in high school, so she's, sort of doesn't know exactly what's going on with them, between them, but, it starts to get a little bit weird, and it keeps getting weirder and weirder, and this is a hard one not to spoil, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, they put a lot into the commercial saying like of that he knows a little bit more than he puts off. The main character is, or the main kind of antagonist, even though they're both not great, is Joel Edgerton playing a guy named Gordon. And Gordon just basically starts popping up at the house. He starts dropping off these little gifts. First, it starts off with a bottle of wine. They're a little confused as to how he found the house. They feel obligated to bring him over for dinner. And then he starts getting into these conversations that start highlighting. What's the main character's name? I'm trying to remember right now.
No, I've completely forgotten. I remember Gordo the weirdo. Like, that's all I remember, but I don't remember the main characters. I remember
his name was Simon, because the whole Simon Says thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jason Bateman plays Simon, and he's basically starting to highlight some things about Simon that you don't really see so far, that he's a complete control freak, that he's very much, he's willing to do anything to get what he wants, and he's kind of manipulative. And you start seeing that come out from the way Gordo's talking. But the way Joel Edgerton, who also directed and wrote this movie, like he plays it like there's just this really ominous feel about everything he says.
That's the trick of the movie, right? Like, they set it up as if like Gordo is the big menace and the big sort of threat. And because of that, you sort of don't see the other side of like who the Jason Bateman character is. Obviously, Simon is his name. You know, Simon, they don't show you a lot of it, but there are little bits and pieces, but it's sort of a misdirection trick. And again, that's why it's so hard to talk about this, because I mean, basically that is the spoiler, for lack of a better word, in that you think, oh, it's just this nice couple who's being bothered by this weird guy, and he is weird. Like, Gordo, for even after the twist, like, you're sort of thinking like, this guy's still a little bit creepy, but it changes how you see him somewhat. And the Jason Bateman character is, changes how you see him, and you realize that both of these guys are not quite what they seem, or maybe Gordo is sort of what he seems. But it's interesting how much Gordo tells the truth in this too.
Yeah.
Like, there's
like blatant white lies, but the rest is pretty clean. Like, the whole thing about him like being divorced or having them come over to his house and he's basically just squatting in someone else's place.
Right, which that sequence was so creepy. Like, because it's one of those, I mean, having seen, what was the movie with the steps and the poster, the guy who gets,
Body?
Body, yes. It has sort of that, like, after having seen that, I was like, this is not his house. I do not buy that this is his house. You're never getting with me with that trick again, movies.
Yeah.
I am on to you.
I kept having that thought because I was like, man, is this one of those things where Hollywood just puts people in really nice apartments but tries to tell you that they're poor?
Well, the other way it could have gone was he actually has made a success of himself and he's sort of been lying about being poor.
Yeah.
Or because he doesn't actually say right at the beginning, oh, I'm poor. He kind of talks about, that he sort of hedges around what his job is, and you think, well, maybe he's like a hedge fund investor and he doesn't really want to get into that. Maybe he doesn't want to have that conversation of like, oh, wow, you actually did something that wasn't stupid. But once you find out, you're like, oh, okay, I see how this is going.
Yeah.
But it's weird because you start off kind of empathizing with the Jason Bateman character, Simon. And as the movie progresses, you realize the movie isn't actually about him so much as it's about the wife and her sort of realization of what kind of person he is and who he is and what she should do about that, which I thought was really fascinating. Sort of a turn in perspective.
Yeah, because like in the trailers, you wouldn't have got that at all, really. Like, she just seemed like she was the one that would get creeped out or something like that. And it's like partially sabotage of marriage. It's partially so many other things, but it's a really interesting story whenever you look at it through her eyes.
And it's really it's so well set up. There's so many things that kind of come together at the end. I don't know if I would call the ending a twist. I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end. But the way that, you see things happen and you're like, well, what was up with that? And then like once you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's what was up with that. I understand what was happening now.
All the pieces fall together, and it's just like it was definitely a solid ending. It's so hard to stick the ending for. I don't know if you could call this a horror movie or not. Like I don't know if what genre would you even consider this? It's sort of horror.
I would call it like drama / thriller almost.
Yeah. There aren't a whole lot of scenes where it's like dark in the house and somebody's in like immediate danger or anything like that. So it's hard to call it horror, but there's definitely elements of that here.
Well, yeah, and I was creeped out at certain points, like when she's walking around, but the fascinating thing is there might be a jump scare, like with a cat or something that is, and not in like a cheap way. I didn't feel anyway. A lot of people don't like jump scares at all. But I felt like that I
think you've got like a limit to how many jump scares you can pull off in a movie. Like every time, like the whole Bagul finish, like where it's just like you're waiting, and it's coming. Like that's a cheap shot one that I think is very unnecessary. Innkeepers did it. A lot of movies have done it. But this movie doesn't have like jump scares like that. This just builds tension and then releases it real quick.
Yeah, the use of the jump scare is to relieve tension, right? Like it's about sort of you have the build up, you have the like, what's gonna happen, and then the jump scare, whether it's real or not, kind of like gives you that deflation. The jump scare itself isn't effective unless what's led up to it is effective, and this movie had really good sort of tension building, and then when the jump scare happens, you're like, oh, you break into a coughing fit.
It always happens when I get jump scared. Try to cover up my fear with a coughing fit.
Anyway,
alive.
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna not. I asked my wife if we had cough syrup, and she said we didn't. So I'm just gonna breathe and pretend like my lungs don't feel like they've been rubbed raw with sandpaper, and we're all good. We're great.
I keep hoping I'm not getting sick right now, but I'm kind of feeling like I am. And that would suck just because Thanksgiving, whenever you're all stopped up and everything, is just not near as fun. And I'm also paranoid of getting my little niece sick.
Well, we have all of the sicknesses going around our house right now. All the kids have had the cough, although I don't have the sinus thing going on, so that's nice. But I got the cough from them. Jack burned his hand on the grill last week.
Oh, that sucks.
So we got like 2nd-degree burns on the back of his hand. We have to keep wrapping up. AJ was throwing up last night for no discernible reason, and yeah, we've had all of the sicknesses that we could have going on.
Bert's house is under quarantine.
It's just bad luck, man.
I'm just gonna throw a tent over it.
Jack ripping the bandage off of his burn.
Yeah, imagine trying to keep. How old is Jack now? Like he's like 14 months or something.
1 and some change, 1.5.
Yeah, trying to tell a kid to keep a bandage on at that age is kind of a concept they're not going to get.
On the plus side, I found out yesterday my kid does not have autism.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering about how that test went. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it on here.
I didn't get to go. My wife went with him, but basically they went through some stuff with him, and they're like, nope, he's good. Has some sensory processing issues where, he doesn't really like loud noises, but who does, I guess. I don't know. It seemed like...
Well, some people are more spooked than others.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems relatively normal to me, not the brightest bulb in the... Oh no, I'm going to drop my phone. I've got a new phone and I'm terrified of dropping it.
I know how that
although
goes.
It is the rugged one. It's supposed to be like, this is... look how cool this looks. Look how ugly that is. But in a cool way. That's a cool looking phone.
Yeah, like we had to get my dad that new Samsung that's a little bit more rugged because... He's a killer of phones on the job sites out there. Whenever you're working with like 500-pound parts and tools that are just crazy huge, like you're gonna break some phones.
Yeah, and it'll like no phone is break proof, although they have like even thicker ones. I think they're just like monsters. This is sort of like a melding between like, all right, we're gonna keep some of the form factor, but they have like the case or not the case, whatever the body. It comes out a little bit more on the corners to sort of give you a little bit of protection there, and it's waterproof, so I can take it in the shower with me. Singing in the shower with my Christmas songs.
Supposedly mine is waterproof, but woo! I don't trust it yet. Like I don't like. I'll look at it as water resistant more than waterproof.
They say you can dunk it in water for like 30 minutes before it fails. I'm pretty fine taking it in the shower if that's the case.
That is true. I think I'm just paranoid. I've got the tech guy water versus electronics thing.
I mean, I'm embracing it. It says active. I am going to be active, all right? I'm going to take my shower with my phone. I'll take a bath with my phone. Can I get a waterproof laptop? That's what I really want.
I'm pretty sure you can actually get that now. It might be ugly Panasonic Toughbook. I love those things. They look like little metal briefcases.
They're also super expensive for like an awful laptop.
Yeah. They were never very good, like power-wise. I used to work in a recycling center that would get those from the Department of Defense all the time. It was my job to wipe them. And they were just so underpowered for how much they cost, but they sold for a bunch on eBay afterwards.
We've kind of gotten away from talking about the movie, and that is partly because there's not a lot more that I want to say because, again, it's really hard not to spoil this movie. I will say the production value they got out of the budget was really great. This is one of those movies that relies on the performances. It takes place, like 90% of it is in one house, and then like a little bit in another house and a couple scenes in an department store.
And it didn't feel like it was confined by the budget either. Like whenever it needed to be somewhere else, if it needed to be in a parking lot real quick or things like that, everything was quick and easy. But the way it was shot, everything's a little bit dark. It's a little bit moody. It just felt good. Like it does not look like a $2 million movie. It looks more like 10, 15.
Right. And we started out talking about Blumhouse, and I think that's really a characteristic of their stuff is that they will make a smaller scale movie, like it'll be in a house or be in like a smaller type of environment where mostly, but they will invest the money in the production of, you know, the cinematography and stuff and, you know, making it look good, having the lighting be dramatic and stuff. And that was, I mean, I criticized in Sinister, I felt like some of the lighting was overdone, but looking back on that a little bit, you know, while I don't know that I would change how I feel about the movie, I'm willing to forgive some of the sort of dramatic, like lots of light coming out from an outside window during the nighttime, just because, yeah, it's a movie. It's supposed to, you know, you need to make it look cool. And I think that making smaller budget movies look good is really what their strength is.
For sure. And like you look at the Saw movies and things like that. Are those part of Blumhouse?
I think they're pre-Blum. Like, I don't think Blumhouse existed when Saw came out.
Yeah, I think I was just getting them confused because Leigh Whannell and some of the other people that wrote Saw are huge involved in Blumhouse now. But it's kind of like that, like where it wasn't very expensive to make, but it looked good.
Even something like The Visit, which is, you know, sorry, I spilled a drink on myself. Something that's relatively cheap to make, right? Like it's found footage. It still looks good. It's found footage that doesn't like annoy you with being shaking all over the place and nobody having any idea where to put the camera. The character actually, you know, in the movie, the character cares about like what, you know, where she's putting. She thinks of herself as a cinematographer, and you get away with a little bit more, you know, dramatic look. With, you know, some still, you know, found footage tropes in there, but I thought that movie worked really, really well. But maybe I'm more forgiving than other people because I also really, really liked Crimson Peak, which is not related to that at all, but makes me think of it because
I go back and forth on Crimson Peak all the time. Like I'm looking at the Birth Movies Death thing with the Crimson Peak cover that we got from Mile High Film Festival. It's on my bed right now, and like I get disappointed, and then there's things I like, and it just goes back and forth. I can't decide what to think about that movie. I'll probably need one more watch before I settle on it.
Well, they're linked in my mind because they both kind of came out, you know, Crimson Peak and The Visit, they both came out and everybody, at least I was anticipating them, and then they got like they both got about 60 on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not terrible. It's not like people hated this, but people were, it seems like it's like, yeah, you know.
That's like the borderline between getting like the tomato and the splat, right?
Yeah, it's very close. And so I was trepidatious going into both of those, and both of those I really ended up liking. So I don't know if it's expectations or just I'm easier to please, or I had different sort of sets of what I wanted going in.
Oh, it's like we've got a lot of expectations for a bunch of movies coming up. Like The Revenant is supposed to be like I just keep hearing about how brutal it is. Like people keep talking about that more than anything else. Like
Has anybody seen that movie yet?
It was trending this morning because a lot of people, like the first reviews are coming out, and some people just couldn't handle the violence of it.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, it sounds like it's an astoundingly well put together movie that is just absolutely violent, and I have been more excited to see it. Like, I was stoked on it before, but now after reading a few of the quick reviews, like, I only skimmed a couple because I don't want all the details of this movie, but I'm super stoked for that. That and Star Wars. I already have my tickets for 7 p.m. on that Thursday.
So do I.
Buddy of mine
I'm earlier than you in the day, so I'll get to see it first. What? I'm gonna text you like, and you'll be in the movie theater. I'll be like, Han Solo died. What was that? And you're gonna be like, shut up! I haven't got to that part yet. And they'll kick you out of the theater, and I will win. That's my 4-year plan. This whole podcast. It's like they're gonna bring Star Wars back, and I'm gonna get to see it an hour before Tony, and I'm gonna spoil it for him, and then I'll get kicked out of the theater, and I'm gonna go back to work at Walmart.
By the time that happens, the movie's gonna be up, and I'm not the guy that pulls out his phone in the movie.
I do sometimes. I gotta admit, like if because I'll leave the kids with people and stuff. Mostly my parents, those kinds of people, not just like you want to keep some kids for a couple hours and go to a movie theater.
Like I'm sure that hobo's trustworthy, but come on.
He will work for food, Tony. I mean,
that's a good deal for anybody.
I bought him a hamburger. I was like, listen, share this with these rugrats and you'll be good.
Hey you! Do you like the thing you're listening to right now? Would you like to listen to even more of that thing? Well, boy oh boy do I have a deal for you, because today, if you go to humanechoes.com and click the Become a Member button, you can get exclusive access to our members-only bonus podcast. That's right, an extra podcast. It comes out every other week. It's only available to people who help support the podcast. Click that Become a Member button, and you will have access to that. Once again, that's humaneshows.com and click Become a Member at the top of the screen. You guys are awesome.
I was talking with John Jones yesterday while we were doing our, we did a review of the Peanuts movie, which you should be able to find on our YouTube channel. And it came up, about hype and stuff. And I said, what if Star Wars The Force Awakens gets here, and people go and see it and they're just like, maybe, I kind of doubt it's going to be awful. Maybe people are, because the hype train is so big for this. If people go to see it and they're just like, yeah, it was okay. Like, that'll be the biggest disappointment for someone like me who's been really excited for the release, and I think I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of people that are really excited for it. If it just sort of gets by and, like Spectre, I think that a lot of people were just sort of okay on Spectre. If it gets a Spectre reaction, that's going to be a problem. I hope it doesn't, because it sounds like that there's a lot, I like collaboration. I like smart collaboration, and Disney's good at that. They've done it with Marvel, they've done it with Pixar, and now they're doing it with Star Wars. They have the sort of same models for all of those. And the person who's in charge, Kathleen Kennedy, really seems like she's got a good head on her shoulders. So it's not like, man, J.J. Abrams better not screw this up. There's a lot of shoulders that this is riding on, and that hopefully means that they'll carry it further. But it would still suck if Star Wars is disappointing.
Yeah, but then we'd also be able to look forward and be like, hey, the next one's by Rian Johnson. Maybe that'll be better.
Yeah, but it won't be the same.
I think it's at least going to be like kind of the journeyman level performance at minimum is what I'm thinking. Like, it's going to be a worthy sequel. Because if you go back and you watch the first ones objectively, you are going to see the cheese that pops up, and you are going to see like the things that aren't perfect about it. So, I don't know.
No, George Lucas went back and fixed that, Tony. Didn't you see the remasters?
Which one?
He made them perfect. He had to cut that singing thing in Jabba's palace, but now it's back in all of its glory.
I actually didn't mind some of the CGI updates that they did in that, like just some of the X-Wing scenes and things like that they cleaned up.
Oh, I don't. I'm making fun, but I legitimately don't care about I mean, some of the stuff I think is out of place, but a lot of the stuff that he added I think is actually really cool. I like the new stuff with Yavin and the run on the Death Star. I like the new entrance to the Hive of Scum and Villainy in Tatooine, whatever the name of that place is. And then like the stormtroopers riding on the giant lizard guys in the background. Like those little things he was able to put in were, I thought they kind of added to the world, but some of the stuff was just like he was trying to remake the movies. The Cloud City, like the Cloud City sequences where he could open up the windows and make it look like that's actually a giant city was all cool. There's just, he went too far.
Yeah. And like, it's weird how many times they remastered those too. I did love those trailers where they were like the George Lucas remastered edition. Instead of like 3 TIE fighters chasing the Millennium Falcon, it's like 60.
Are you talking about the Michael Bay? Oh no, that was Michael Bay directs Titanic. Never mind.
It's similar to that. It's basically like if George Lucas remastered this movie, and it was just thousands more TIE fighters and everything.
Trailer.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about now. I did see that. I think Jar Jar Binks pops up at one point.
Yeah.
The Jar Jar Binks edition of the Star Wars Force Awakens trailer was great. When he just kept like popping up in different places and like sticking his eyes through the little Vader mask. Did you see that, Tony?
I have not, but it sounds pretty good.
It's hilarious. I really, really enjoyed that.
It reminds me, like Danny Brophy said that he knows he's grown up because he didn't break up with his girlfriend for liking Jar Jar Binks.
No, he hasn't.
He's grown up a little bit.
I've talked to him on Twitter. I know. We are getting a little bit far afield, Tony. Let's keep it a little bit more focused with some viewer questions. Do we have viewer questions for this week?
The first one is from Geek Girl Co. on Twitter. It is about gifts. So she asks, what is the weirdest gift you've ever received?
Man, that's a tough one.
I had a girlfriend pull the inverse of what happened in this movie once, where someone gives the pregnancy test, and they're like, "Oh, I'm pregnant" and everything, and she like came up to me and handed me a box, and I was like, "What is this?" And I saw the pregnancy test, and I like started freaking out, and she's like, "It's negative." That's the gift.
That's a good trick. That I assume is this your current girlfriend or an ex-girlfriend?
No, this is long time ex.
Okay. Well, I assume you had your good reasons for leaving her, but that girl must have a pretty good sense of humor because that's hilarious. I find that incredibly funny.
Yeah. But like she didn't have a sense of humor about everything, but she definitely nailed it there.
Hold on. I'm getting it.
The arch.
Here's my weirdest gift.
One of the weird things about us
for me. What was it? 2 Christmases ago now?
I think so, because he gave you an arch and he gave me a bottle of scotch. I feel like I got a pretty good gift out of that, but it's not quite as permanent as the arch. And it's kind of weird right now because with Hangouts, I can actually see Al pull that up right now, so it's not quite as me sitting here in the dark.
It's there's some advantages to the new recording setup. But that was such a fun little like. I remember opening that and just being like, "What?" I was confused. Like I'm sure I've got weirder gifts, but that made an impression on me because I was like, "What was he thinking?" And then I remembered all of our conversations that we'd had about like, the impressiveness of the arch and stuff compared to the pyramids. Because we got into this debate about, it wasn't really a debate, but me and Tony were kind of talking about like, hey man, look how great the, how advanced people have had to be to make the pyramids. Not that we believe in ancient aliens or anything, but we were sort of defending the people who think, well, it must have been aliens. And Joe goes off and he's like, what is wrong with you? Like, compared to later engineering feats, like those are ridiculous. Like, and he talked about arches and specifically medieval churches. He's like, nobody goes to like look at a giant cathedral that they built in the 1500s and says, there's no way they must have had alien help. And those are way more impressive.
Yeah. Multi-generational projects that turn out to be like some of the coolest looking architecture ever. I really
mean,
need to get to Europe just to see some of those old places. I'm not even religious, and I want to go see all those churches.
What I want to see is I've read anyway, because I have a book about mazes, and one of the things he talks about is that when they built a lot of these churches, there was iconography based around the maze, and a lot of them would have like a little maze in the entryway, or a labyrinth, so to speak, and you would walk the labyrinth, and that was supposed to symbolize, is the word I'm looking for, some kind of spiritual journey to the center of the soul, or to God, or whatever. I just want to see that. I would love to see, something that's set into stone, that's carved into stone, that people have walked on for 500 to 1,000 years.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. I don't know why that particular thing is exciting to me more than anything. I mean, I'm sure I would get there and be awed by a lot of other things, but that specific detail always made me I was like, I did not know that they had little labyrinth carvings in churches. The history of the labyrinth is fascinating, by the way. People who, haven't studied that really should check it out. But anyway, to make a long story short about the arch, that as a punchline to that joke, Joe sent me this arch that's behind me for Christmas. I was like, what is this? And then I put it together, and then I took the blocks and I made a pyramid. And I sent him a picture of the pyramid. Maybe the funniest thing I've ever done. I don't think I'm ever going to top that, but it was a good run.
You can't exactly pull a fake pregnancy test.
No, I cannot.
I mean, you could. It's always going to be negative. It would be more impressive if you pulled a positive one.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I have no idea how would you fake a pregnancy test? Somebody out there must know.
No clue.
I can't imagine that that hasn't popped up for somebody being like, I want this guy to stay with me, but he won't because he doesn't like me. But what if I was pregnant and I was going to have another human being? I bet he'll stay with me then, because that's how people think.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have tried to trap people in relationships through pregnancy. I think it depends on how dumb the person is, because if you got a blue marker, you might be able to pull it off.
You get the wrong... I only have green! You scribble it in there.
Close enough.
Why is it a different color? That's the new kind. That's the new kind that they have. They have two colors.
It means twins. All right, the next question comes from the real Noel Love on Twitter, who is co-host of the Heels and Headshots podcast. Why is Tony Southcott so darn good looking? Are you all that hot? Can I subscribe to your newsletter? And the answer to all of these is yes.
The answer to why is Tony Southcott so good looking is yes?
She has not seen the podcast, apparently. That is wildly inaccurate. But yes, you can subscribe to our newsletter at humanechoes.com. We would actually really appreciate that. Or at the Writers Arena, because we send out MailChimp stuff.
Also, we've uncovered Tony's ghost account. He has, apparently.
Yeah, my second podcast where I'm a mid-30s woman.
You can pull it off if you keep the beard shaved. A little wig.
I'm so glad the beard is starting to be real.
Oh, believe me, I am as well. Are you participating in No Shave November? Is that No Shave November beard?
Yeah, this is from November 1st, where I shaved everything off, face-wise and head-wise, of course. And right now I'm basically, what is today, the 23rd? So 23 days in. And I've pretty much committed that I'm not going to shave the rest of the year, because I want to, I've never given it time, because it's about to hit the awkward stage where it starts getting really curly and bushy. And you've just got to kind of push through with beards, because there's 3 different phases, and 2 of those phases look bad. So
how long are you wanting it to get? Are you looking for a Bushman beard where it hangs down to your chest? How have we gotten away from talking about the tweet asking how good looking you were?
Well, we're talking about beards, so obviously that's related.
Okay.
The more I can cover my face, the better as far as looking good. So I don't want a full dwarven beard or anything like that, because that's just a vulnerability in a fight. So if someone can actually grab a tuft of hair, they could probably beat you in a fight. So I got to keep it so that it's just long enough to look good, but not long enough that somebody could grab a handful of it.
I like that Tony's default thing is well, we got to be able to win a fight also. That's important.
Well, it's like people with like the giant gauges in their ears. The first thing that's happening in a fight, if I see somebody like that, is that I'm grabbing that and pulling it.
Maybe those people aren't getting into fights that often.
Oh, maybe they should have considered that before they mutilated their ear.
No, I mean, they consider the fact that I don't get into a fight that often. I don't really need to think about that. Like, some people don't, like, wake up in the morning and be like, what decision today can I make that will make me best able to win a fight that I'm in?
I think it's more that I'm a little bit worried about getting jumped for my cell phone because I take a lot of walks at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Oh, yeah?
So, like, I'm thinking about...
Bad?
What's that?
Is your neighborhood that bad?
No, it's not that bad. It's a nice place, but I know that I'm carrying like a $600 cell phone on me and my tablet that I'm listening to podcasts on. I'm wearing headphones in the dark, walking through alleyways and things like that. It could happen. So I just think about, like, if I'm going to get jumped, I don't want to make it easy on them. But, like, I'm not as tall as you, but I'm still a broad guy. I'm still walking around in a dark hoodie cackling in the darkness, so... I'm not sure that I'm going to be ever like bothered by something like that, but it's something I think about while I'm out and about. Especially because I've seen like 3 or 4 people arrested on my walks before.
I think you're in denial about how bad your neighborhood is. I live in a not a bad part of town, but a little bit sort of lower rent area, and I've never seen anybody arrested.
No, this is mostly just cops grabbing homeless people to take them like to a different part of town, drop them off the rescue mission.
Okay.
Once there was a guy that was whacked out on meth.
Even then, I don't have any homeless people in my neighborhood. I mean,
this is the neighborhood near the college campus, so they're always just wandering around.
Okay.
My neighborhood's not that bad. My town is very low crime rates. I probably don't have to worry about it that much, but I am vulnerable because I'm listening to stuff instead of just watching my surroundings.
I'm looking for something here. Do we have more questions? Read a question while I'm looking for this thing I want to read.
We have no more questions.
We have no more questions. Okay.
Today was one of those days where you get far more retweets than you get questions. I think we tapped out some people like Rich and our normal people. We need to let them recharge and get some new questions for us.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read something then as soon as it loads and I scroll down to it. Okay. I read this to you and Joe, but I want to read it to our audience. For those of you who are not really familiar with the movie news world, DC is working on a whole compendium of different superhero movies. And they have a Flash movie coming up that they're going to make. And the star of that movie is a guy named Ezra Miller, who, again, if you're not familiar, is not the same guy who plays the Flash in the TV show.
Isn't he the guy playing Kylo Ren?
No, Kylo Ren is Adam Driver.
Ah, never mind.
I can't believe I didn't even have to think about that. Holy crap, have I watched too much Star Wars related crap. Oh. I'm not that interested in the movie, Tony, but somehow I you know what? I just like listening to people talk. It really, that's what it is. But yes, this is what he said after he was asked about the differences between what his movie is going to be and the TV show, The Flash. Oh, okay. I'm not going to laugh. Well, it's going to be a movie. I'd like for it to be an exploration of a human being, a multi-dimensional human being, so to speak. Wow, I just made such a pun without meaning to. I'd like the character to have many dimensions, but really, I'd like him to have the usual dimensions we know and love, and then some extra ones that are part of the amazing consideration of this superhero. I hope to realize him as a person, and I think that that's what's most exciting for me in superhero mythologies, is when we feel the humanity of someone who is heroic, or the heroism of someone who is a flawed, deeply human person. That needs
to be bronzed somewhere. The Flash Memorial.
It's, you know what the problem is though, Tony? Like, if you say a lot, if everything you say gets recorded, eventually they're going to record you saying something really stupid.
Yeah.
If you transcribed everything that we said on this podcast every week, you could pick out some really, really dumb quotes.
Let me put this into perspective. This is 168. There are 168 hours in the week. So if you have listened to every episode of this, not counting the bonus episodes, you have listened to more than 1 week of Al and I talking to each other. And in that time, I have said some absolutely moronic things that I hope just get forgotten by time. So I'm sure I've said something at least that dumb. And whenever you're just on the spot, like, who knows? He might have been on cough syrup or something. Like, there could be any number of things that led to that statement. So I sympathize with him, but I still could have a little bit of fun laughing at that. It's like when Gavin said on the Rooster, or one of the Minecraft episodes of Achievement Hunter, does rocks float on lava? And like they made a shirt out of it and immortalized it.
I mean, it's better than Ryan's "I'm still in the air." That was that was such a great moment. If you guys don't watch the Rooster Teeth videos, they had a video in GTA where they filmed a big jump that they did, and they showed like all the people's perspectives. So they showed the jump once, and then they would go back and show a different perspective. So they showed the same video like 6 times, and each time Ryan yells, "I'm still in the air!" And that became such a great running gag because he hated it. Like, whenever
he didn't think any shirts would sell. They sold thousands of that shirt. Like, he refused to even model the shirt. Like, they had to Photoshop him into the shirt.
Did you see the Ryan the Slide Guy video that they did?
Yeah,
the runner up, or it was a second or third place, when they had like the guy who was doing the Olympic style announcing for him going down the slide. He's like, and he does like the past, it's like in the Greenwich 2012 Olympics, he went down the slide and went back up, and he wasn't seen for 3 weeks. At which point it was discovered that he was still in the air. And like, them just throwing that in there like that, it keeps coming back in such a great way.
Yeah, anytime like anything bumps him into the air, he's reminded of that. Like, I love those little memes that happen in shows.
I was gonna say that what Ezra Miller, what Ezra Miller is saying here is that it's not that dumb. He's just saying it over and over and over again. He's just saying like, hey, we're gonna make it a multi-dimensional character. It's gonna be deep. Probably he's covering for the fact that he doesn't actually watch the Flash TV show, and he has no idea how it's gonna be different. It's just like he's gonna be a character, guys. Human stuff and character.
He probably has an NDA too, where he can't really talk much about it. Like, he can't get into specifics.
And well, actors also do that whole thing where they're like, I don't want to watch another actor's portrayal because it will make me change my portrayal of the character. I will make my own character, which equal parts pretentious and also understandable to me. I go back and forth about how I feel about that, but it's understandable. But he could have just said like, "Hey guys, I haven't watched that show. Read the comics. Don't care about the show. I'm a busy life. I can't go and watch all the episodes." And that would have been, I think, okay. But then you get a lot of fans who are like, he doesn't respect the character. This is almost like a no-win situation. If he really hadn't seen the show, he's just sort of like, it's human, guys. A human person who's superhuman, humanity.
I've been hearing a lot more about like how writers are disrespecting their characters now because they're killing more of them off in TV shows. Like, what do you think about that?
What?
Yeah, like, I've seen a lot of people quit watching The Walking Dead, quit watching Game of Thrones, quit watching a lot of shows because they'll kill off a main character, and they say that it's completely disrespectful to the characters. Like, they just don't think it should happen. And it's like, if you don't add that element to some stories, like Game of Thrones might go too far. Walking Dead, I don't think they've gone too far. Maybe once or twice they've gone too far with like killing off a character that didn't need to die. But it just never, like, I never had a problem with that because I think that good storytelling should make it so that your people aren't escaping every single time. Like, if there's no casualties, there's no reason to think that they're ever in peril.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm with you on that, but I also think that people generally fall in love with certain characters, and when a character dies, that they really like and they don't want to die, some people can't deal with that. Like their way of dealing with it is like, I just can't keep watching this show because that character was why I was watching the show. That was my reason to tune in every week, which is why they haven't killed off Daryl in The Walking Dead yet.
Yeah. No, he was supposed to be like a little side character. He turned into like a major thing.
Right, because people would stop, like a lot of people would stop watching. You can kill off a lot of people, but people aren't watching the show for, what's the little kid's name?
Coral. Chandler Riggs.
Yeah. I think he's still alive. I don't watch the show, so I don't know, but I'm saying, like, if you killed him off, that, like, people wouldn't be like, all right, well, here's my favorite character, I'm leaving. Not watching anymore. Like, if you kill off Daryl, people are like, that was, like, the only good part of the show.
Yeah.
Let's talk about bread, Tony. I brought some show and tell today.
I love Ezekiel bread.
Do you?
It's my wife got human feces, though. Or cow feces, like it's supposed to be. That stuff isn't it.
Okay.
I checked.
You jumped the gun on my joke. What? All right.
Take two.
Do
it again.
Take it away, Tony. Apparently you know the punchline. No, there's this recipe. For those of you who don't know, Ezekiel bread. I'm pulling up the my phone and my Bible here. Is this bread made from this recipe? Not Ezra. Dag nabbit, the other easy book. There we go. It's made from this recipe in the book of Ezekiel, but the verse in the Bible that they put on the front of the bread is Ezekiel 4:9, which says, "Take thou also unto thee wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and fitches," whatever half of that stuff is, I don't know, "and put them in one vessel and make thee bread thereof according to the number of the days that thou shalt lie upon thy side. 390 days shalt thou eat thereof." Which, I don't care how much you like that bread. 390 days eating any kind of bread is going to be boring.
Especially because you can't eat that bread not toasted. If you don't toast it, that is the worst bread on the planet.
But they don't put on there Ezekiel 4:12, Tony, which says, "And thou shalt eat it as barley cakes, and thou shalt bake it with dung that cometh out of man in their sight." If they're not making this with human poop, it's not Ezekiel bread.
Yeah.
You are lying, sir.
I was actually worried about that whenever I saw the bread and heard about that. And I made sure. I went to their website and they're like, "No, we use convection ovens." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Thank you for not going full Ezekiel on me."
To be clear, the poop doesn't go in the bread. It's the fuel being burned to bake the bread.
Yeah, but if there's fumes and everything.
Yes. Well, even, like, Ezekiel, everybody's like, "Oh, Ezekiel bread." But the actual recipe, Ezekiel even tapped out on. He's like, God, could we not do the human poop thing? Could we, like, do cow poop instead? And God's like, "Yeah, okay, you can burn cow poop." It's like, thank you. Which, if Ezekiel's tapping out on something, I mean, this is the dude who laid on one side of himself for 300 and some days and then switched over and laid on his other side for another 100 and something days because God told him to do it.
Sounds like
this
bed
guy
sores.
is no wuss. Like, plus, what kind of job would that be? Like, I mean, you think like, oh wow, he's lazy, but like, you're not allowed to get up, you're not allowed to move, you're just laying there for 300 days to make a point. Ezekiel's a weird book.
Yeah.
That dude, like, if you have an acid trip, go read the book of Ezekiel and it'll make it even more fun.
Yeah, just have someone read it
wheels
to you.
And like having all kinds of odd prophecies, and then like you get like really specific stuff about the like temple at the very, in the millennium at the end. Weird book.
Yeah.
I don't know why you guys are pulling your recipes out of the book of Ezekiel, because that book is bonkers.
But the Ezekiel bread
have
itself...
white bread. Sorry, go ahead.
Ezekiel bread itself is actually pretty good whenever you do it right. Like, you just slather it in butter, you get it like nice and toasted. Otherwise, it tastes like cardboard. It's really weird how toasting it can make it that much better.
What is your background with it? Like, I know that you have some church background, but had you heard about the recipe in Ezekiel before you found out about the bread, or was that something that you came about earlier?
I heard about the recipe because of Mike Dolce, who is a fight nutritionist, And basically, I was looking at at his diet philosophy for a long time, which was basically just eat whole foods. And if you want to have bread, Ezekiel bread is the best way to go because it's mostly whole grains and everything, not like the still multi-processed like multi-grain bread. So I was just trying that out for a little bit and found that I kind of liked it. So if I see it on sale, I'll pick it up. Otherwise, it's like $5 a loaf.
No, I mean, how did you find out about the human dung angle?
He talked about it on his podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was like, he actually had the guy that is the head of that company on there, and he asked the question. He's like, you've probably been asked this before, but I've got to know if I want to keep buying this bread. Do you cook it with cow dung? And he's like, no, we can still be a faithful company and all this other stuff without doing that.
Okay. I guess that's okay then.
Straight from the source, I heard that.
You know, if it tastes good, I'm not trying to knock anybody who's. But it's just bizarre to me that somebody's like, we're gonna make this bread that they made, like.
And cow dung actually burns really, really well. Like, I don't know if you've ever started a fire with cow patties or anything like that. It works really well.
Well, and they do use it as fuel in really developing parts of the world. In fact, that's one thing that some places are worried about because it gives off a lot of smoke, and the sort of if you get a lot of people in one place, you get a bunch of sort of cow patty smoke pollution.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a problem if you have too much of it.
A lot of the dairies my dad works on actually have silos where they put all the dung now and actually take the methane and use that for power. It's kind of cool to see.
That is interesting.
Just take it's like what a lot of old dumps are starting to do, where you can take the old rotting gases, put that methane to use just as a natural gas sort of thing. Otherwise, it's just leaking out into the atmosphere, not doing anything.
Yep. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. I was looking up the time in the episode, which is, I believe, running down for us. And we are heading into our big Thanksgiving weekend, Tony. We got to get this edited and put up, and we can take off.
I think that this might end up being up a little bit early just because I don't want to do a bunch of stuff on Thanksgiving. I don't think it's going to be Wednesday. I think it'll be Thursday morning before all the stuff happens. So if you guys are watching this, we are having a Black Friday sale on t-shirts, or rather, TeePublic decided they were going to do a Black Friday sale. I'm pretty sure it goes into the weekend a little bit. So if you want to wear the Octoshark t-shirt that Al is wearing and has been wearing this whole episode, Octoshark. I did not wear one today because mine are dirty. Anyway.
I've been wearing them only when I'm on video, just because I want to be able to wear them in as many videos as possible.
I was in a public place, so I was like, yeah, somebody's going to read Human Echo's podcast.
I have no faith in people going and being like, I will Google what Human Echo's podcast is and then listen to an episode. I'm the most pessimistic person in the world. But it's an awesome shirt, though. I really do love the Octoshark.
Yeah, Jen's design is so perfect.
Okay. For those of you who haven't watched it yet, and the quality of the video is a little bit grainy, we're hoping maybe we can get a little bit better version. But what we have available right now, I haven't even told Tony about this, but if you go to the end of our Peanuts episode, which should be out right now, and watch John Jones pitch for the Human Echoes t-shirt store, that alone is if you haven't gone and bought a shirt right after that, he does the whole old-timey radio announcer voice, and it is just wonderful. Go check that out. It's in the last couple minutes of that episode if you don't want to watch us talk about Peanuts, which you should, because Peanuts is awesome, and we're awesome.
And John Jones is a straight-up expert on Peanuts.
He is. He lives in Peanut Central USA. They have he talks about that, about how it's a very big part of the culture around where he lives. And he had some great insights. Both of us really enjoyed that movie, but he closed it out. He was wearing his Octoshark shirt, and he talked he had a whole little ad copy written up that he read off for me, and it was I
Sounds like we might need to
use
that as
he didn't tell me or anything. He's just I'll have invited me on the podcast. I'll go write this up. And he's such a great voice for radio. That it just, I don't know. I was blown away and excited, and I haven't even told Tony about this yet, but now he knows.
Sounds like we need to use it for a mid-roll ad at some point.
We'll see. I might splice it into the episode.
For sure.
Here.
Friends, what do you ask of your clothing? If you're like me, much, I'm sure, just the important things, comfortable fit, classic styling, and trendy designs that catch the eye. If these are what you ask of your clothing, then TeePublic T-shirts, folks, at the Human Echoes podcast is the answer you're looking for. Yes, the fine chaps at the Human Echoes podcast spared no expense, bringing you the Octoshark, no spoilers, and more at prices that won't break the bank. And do these trendy designs turn heads? You betcha. Put on one of these T-shirts, and why, perfect strangers will tell you, "Hey, bub, you've got a lot of nerve." Yes, sirree. These T-shirts are made from the finest artistic craftsmanship and guaranteed to make you the talk of. And they're cotton, so they feel good on the skin and breathe deeply like an Octoshark ought to. TeePublic T-shirts, Echoes podcast. Buy yours today and get hella ripped.
The next best thing you can do is actually to subscribe. If you go to humanechoes.com and look for the white red button, it'll say subscribe. It'll be on the right-hand side. If you click that, you can go 2, 5, 10, 20, or 1,000 if you're super rich and you want to be the Magnificent Octoshark. You can sign up and get our bonus content, which is right now it's bonus podcasts, but we're also going to be working on a tiered system soon. We keep promising that. We're just kind of fleshing out the details right now. Thank you guys so much. We love our subscribers. Thank you guys for watching this. It means the world to us that you've been just keeping on with us for 168 episodes. It's awesome, and I hope you guys have an awesome, awesome Thanksgiving.
Yes, and next week we will be covering The Guest, which is another Definite Article G movie. Then that is on Netflix currently. I hope it will still be when we're coming out with this episode.
And I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say that this movie is really cool, and you guys should watch it before you listen to the review. So check it out if you've got some time this weekend on your break.
That is definitely another one that is going to be difficult to talk around some of the stuff that happens. I mean, it's one that you don't want to have spoiled if you have any interest at all. So definitely go and check that out. And we will see you guys next week with your Thanksgiving turkey hangover. Don't forget to set your scales back 10 pounds.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Free calories.
Bye, guys.
See ya.